California Longitudinal Student Achievement Data System, CalPADS, collects student level records from every school and district in the state.
All right, well, let's make sure that we're looking at the same thing that they're looking at when we do this. So we'll go to California Department of Education Data Quest, and we'll click on that one, click on Data Quest itself. Then we want to look at things on the district level, and we want to look at the expulsions and suspensions. We'll submit that. 17-18 school year is the one that's being referenced, and Antelope Valley Union High School District. We'll submit that, and the suspension rate. We'll submit that. And what we come up with when we do that is something that looks very much like the sheet that she shared at the meeting, and we'll show a picture of that as well. Here's the exact same paper that she had in her hand at the time. It's a picture of it. She, when we asked for it, gave it to us to look at. It has her writing on the side, violation of second or something. Can't exactly tell what it says. But the numbers here are exactly the same as what we just showed you. So anyone can go find that online. And you can see that the blue bar on the top is exactly the same as what comes up on that. It's pretty obvious that it was printed from that exact page.
In 17-18, which was last school year, we had 25,491 students in the Antelope Valley Union High School District that were suspended with one suspension. Actually, let me recant that. Last year, we had 25,491 students. Of those 25,491 students, we had 16,947 students that were suspended more than one time. That's 66% of our population. And the breakdown of those numbers is 2,668 students of 4,553 who were African American, 55 of 88 American Indian or Alaskan Native, 219 of 307 that were Asian, 11,655 of the 15,815 Hispanic or Latinx students. For sure we know that there were 14,597 minoritized students that were suspended for more than one time. And this is directly off of our CalPADS data.
All right, so even though it was a short clip, we got a lot of information to unpackage there. Looking at the same page where all of the data came from, that she's reading from her data sheet, we can see right off the get-go the first number that she shares, 25,491 students. That's the same as what we're looking at here. She says that 16,947 of those students were suspended. That's not listed anywhere here. So where did she come up with that number? We can get an idea of that as we look at the other numbers that she shares. She says that of African American students, 2,668 of them were suspended. My apologies that I'm not great at writing with a mouse. But where does that number come from? Well, the total number of African American students, 4,553, multiplied by this number is where her number came from. So if we pull up the calculator, we can see that 4,553 multiplied by 0.586 for our 58.6%. We get the 2,668. So that's where that number came from. But is that what this number actually means? This is the percent of students suspended that were suspended with one suspension. So over here, this is the total number of suspensions, but some of these are the same kids being suspended multiple times. So this number, 850, that's the actual number of kids that were suspended. And we can see that because if we pull up our calculator again and we take the 850 students that unduplicated number who were suspended and we divide it by the 4553, then we can see that that is that 18.7% rounded off that we get right here. That's what this is telling us. 18.7% of students in that category were suspended. It is not 2,668 students. Those are vastly different numbers. What she's trying to say is that if you take these across, then it works. But what she's totally missing is that if you were to take this number of the students that were suspended one time, and you were to take this number of the students that were suspended multiple times, in every instance, it adds up to 100%. If you add 58.6% and 41.4%, that equals 100%. Go down every single line in the column. They always add up to 100% because the student was either suspended one time or they were suspended multiple times. And that's what they're telling us here. Of the total number of suspensions, how many were one-time offenses and they learned their lesson and moved on, and how many of them were multiple offenses of the same student that continued on. You do not, however, multiply this number by this number. That does not tell us anything. That is not a valid number. It's completely invalid. And she does it over and over again. She then says the American Indians, that 55 of them were suspended. Terrible writing with the mouse again, my apologies. But if you multiply this 62.5% by the 88, you get that. She then goes on to say that 219 Asian students were suspended. And if you multiply that 71.4% by the 307, you get the 219. Interestingly, she skips the Filipino line. Doesn't give any reason why. I would venture to guess it's because this 100% number confused her. She probably didn't understand why 100% was in this category. So she just didn't feel comfortable throwing in the 347 students. Or maybe she doesn't consider Filipinos to be people of color, because at the end she adds them all together and says, we know this many students of color were suspended. She's wrong in that number, but she completely leaves Filipinos out of that altogether, most likely because she doesn't know what to do with this 100% whatsoever. Then she goes on to the Hispanic number, and again, multiplies this number by the total number, and then tries to say that there were 11,655 Hispanic students that were suspended. She then adds all of those numbers together and comes up with her number of 14,597 and says, we know that directly off the CalPADS data that there was 14,597 students of color who were suspended more than one time. She actually doesn't even get the column right. She's multiplying by this column here, but then she says that it's this column, that they were suspended more than one time. She also doesn't reference the Pacific Islanders, again, probably thrown off by this 100%, or she doesn't consider them to be people of color, not sure. But then she runs with this number. Clearly, if you are looking at those numbers, going back to, she says there was the 16,947. Well, if you add in some of these other categories, I'm sure that would get us to that point. That's why she thinks that 66% of all students in the entire district are being suspended. The thing is, she's completely wrong. This is the total number of students who are being suspended. Now, are there things that we can work on? Absolutely. And we'll reference some of those later on the things that are being done as the Assistant Superintendent, Shannon Williams, shares the things that are being done and that these numbers are actually getting better over time. But the main key right here at this point is this number that she is referencing, claiming to have come directly off of CalPADS. This information did come off of CalPADS, but she's reading the data chart wrong.
Yet, 2,305 of those students were white or Caucasian. That's alarming as well, because of our white population, we have 3,238 students that were on record. So that population of students was also suspended at a 72.6 rate. This is a problem, not just for minority kids. It's talking about our culture and our school system.
Okay, so she continues to say that there were 2,350 of the white students that were suspended. 2,350. Where does she get that number from? Again, she continues to take this number right here, 3238, and she multiplies it by this number right here, 72.6%, and we end up with that 2350 number. So she's actually saying that there are 2,350 students out of 3,200 white students in the schools that are suspended. Actual number, 164 students that are suspended. This is more than 14 times higher than what it actually is, what she's reporting on. The 11,000 something that she said for the Hispanics a second ago, when the actual number is closer to 1,000, that is more than 10 times higher than what it actually is. So when she's screaming from the rooftops about the things that she's seeing, she's screaming from the rooftops about things that are 10, 14 times higher than what they actually are.
Per the data, and it's only 15,815 of those students in our district. That is a high rate of suspensions, and I didn't even get into the percent of suspensions for multiple suspensions. So when we look at the reasons why we ask for investigations, or it's not even an investigation, just an audit of our practices, the data speaks for itself.
I would like to clarify. So as part of our coordinated early intervention services plan that we've been working on with CDE over the past 5 years, we have been already addressing these areas. Do we have work to do in that area? Absolutely. And we are continuing to move forward with that work. As is shown in the previous board presentation back in April, we have done a lot of work in terms of decreasing the suspension and expulsions for our students. Also with our student support center and the work that we're doing with our student support center and expanding on that work is allowing us as well to address that. Also recognizing that our students have unique needs. Hence why we're bringing on four social workers. 2 have an LMFT license, 2 are LCSW, really to help us get to the root of why behaviors are occurring. We do not suspend kids based on ethnicity. Kids are suspended based on violation of the ed code.
Amen.
What I would like to just reiterate is that this is not an issue that we are blind to or not working towards in terms of addressing. It is an issue that takes time. And so as we're moving forward with our plan and the development of our plan and our work with our coordinated, our SAYS, we call it SAYS, our SAYS committee, and identifying the root causes, as well as bringing in more interventions on the agenda today is a partnership with the Social Justice Learning Institute that would allow us that, and it's partly grant funding and part of it is what we will be providing as well in terms of funding, would allow us to have 3 elective courses on 3 of our campuses. We are looking to expand that work as well. That is specifically for young boys of color. And what it allows it provides mentorship as well as counseling and all of those wraparound services that are needed in order to help all of our students to be successful. So once again, we recognize that this is an area that we will continue to work on, and it doesn't stop here, it just keeps moving forward and keeps progressing.
Thank you, Ms. I see the work that you're doing, and these numbers are not far-fetched. The data that was shared with us before gave us a 10-year trajectory and how it was declining. But these numbers are up close and personal. If we have 25,491 students in our district last year, and of those 25,491, 16,947 were suspended more than one time. That is still a problem. And I can see if we have a root cause and we're trying to address it, but I'm thinking that this is an issue that we really need to be progressive about.